goodness. And I'll make sure to put this up on YouTube, and I'll let you all know once it's posted, because I am always at the mercy of the incredible Ryan. Thank you so much for being one of my best friends, but also like helping me with everything tech wise, so I don't completely just melt into an oblivion. This, like I said, it's been kind of a long time coming. Not because I don't love talking about Lucifer, but because it's a lot of information. Has anyone here been like, I'm assuming there's a lot of people here that have worked with Lucifer, and you don't have to like open your camera, you don't have to like turn your mic on. I can make that assumption. And if you've been working with Lucifer for a long time, you are aware that there is a lot of information to digest about him. And some of it leads you to dead ends. I have been working with him for a long time. I'm not gonna sit here and rub numbers around. And it has been my absolute pleasure and honor to work for him, like with him, and to have taken the oaths that I've taken beside him. And this year in particular was an important year for both he and I. And so you may notice that I'll be talking about him a lot. It's also the year that my book will be coming out, which is very exciting. And in the book, I don't just talk about Lucifer, but I talk about a lot of the gods that we work with. And I just thought, you know, I think it's time that I kind of walk everyone through the realizations that I've made about Lucifer. And what I will say is I hope that this leads you everywhere and nowhere all at once. There will be an opportunity to ask me questions at the end. Like I said, I'm going to try really, really hard to keep this at 2 hours. Don't laugh. I'm trying. I'm going to try. So if I talk too fast, you can just put little hands up or little I don't know, white flags. Well, if people on TikTok put little white flags, I can see it.
Patreon, I'll watch the chat so you can text.
So I've got TikTok, so for people that are watching the recording, you're going to see me probably look to the left. Down here there's TikTok, and then everyone here is my recorded Patreon, and over here hopefully my notes pop up on the computer screen, but if not, I'm just going to use my notes from I know it doesn't make any sense, my notes from this screen over here, so bear with me. I'm also going to read you a little bit from Lunchtime with Demons, the book. And I'm going to try to make this a little less of a lecture. But ultimately, that's what all my master classes are, is just a solid lecture. And then afterwards, like I said, if you have questions or comments, concerns, whatever, you know, one thing that I really want you all to just really realize is I'm not here to tell you the truth. I'm here to tell you my truth. With that being said, you can take it or leave it. You can watch this entire thing and based on your own research, make other decisions about who you think he is and how you think he came to be the entity that he is now. I'm not here to sway and or influence. I have been lucky enough to be in a position to serve him and to serve his practitioners and to serve my own community, family, and friends through his wisdom, kindness, and love. And so my job is right now is really to just share because I can. And again, you can take that or leave it. I'm really curious on TikTok, if you don't mind, how many of you know Lucifer as being a fallen angel and that's about it? Anyone here that knows Lucifer as being a fallen angel, and that is about it. Really? Okay. Oof. Get ready to digest because it's gonna be a long night. Hi, Casey. Okay. So I'm gonna open my notes and we're gonna get started. We're gonna start with religion. Religion as a whole. And my notes are not in order. So periodically it may take me a minute to scroll down to the different areas of my notes. That's just mom life, I think. It's me trying to get my life in order. All right. So does anyone, and when I say anyone, unfortunately for everyone on Patreon, you guys can't really answer, but you know who can answer? Everyone on TikTok. So I like to make it a little interactive as I go over a bunch of information. Does anyone here want to take a smack at what the first religion in the world is? So, yeah, okay. Fire! Hey, Emily, that's one of my students. Thank you so much. Jumping in, you are actually right. We're going to start with animism. So animism is prehistoric in spirituality terms. It is at least over 100,000 years old. And it is not a religion by name. In other words, it does not have a name. So we just call it animism. It was a worldview practiced by humans, and it involved animals and rivers and mountains and trees, and it is consciousness, but most importantly, it is just we don't have a lot of information on it because we don't have any written text for it. This was simply we have found through archaeology, we have found different things pointing to this, such as like bones and the way that the bones were twisted together, and the way that people so by finding bones the way that we did, whether they were just human or not, we were able to tell through burial rites and through different little idols that were buried with them that were either hand carved or carved into the rocks around them. So animism is our first spiritual interaction. It is believed that we literally, and this is honestly why it is still heavily practiced in indigenous cultures across the world. This is the root of that. This is before temples, before gods had names. This was the forest. The forest was the god. The stars told the stories, and the body, the mind, the human, you were the memory. And this is the root of the horned god, coming from straight out of the forest in the form of a deer or in the form of an elk. And this is the horned god's origin, is in the form of an animal. And we will get into that. But I just want to start here. So I saw someone say Abrahamic, and unfortunately, no, we're going way before that. Okay. Next, we're gonna talk about this is my favorite thing to do, is pronounce things terribly. So I'm gonna pronounce it properly, which is Göbekli Tepe. But for the longest time, I said Göbekli and did not know that until today that I was giving it an extra L. So Göbekli Tepe is the proper pronunciation, and that is the oldest religion that we have. It is 12,000 years old. Its site is in Turkey. It is the oldest known ritual complex in Turkey. It predates agriculture. The carvings suggest that literally this religion is beyond the physical because of not just the carvings, but the stones themselves. There is no possible way for these stones to be where they are in Turkey. Like they're so old, there's no possible way for them to be how they are and in the structure they are. I don't have the notes right in front of me, but I do have them somewhere in here just how old it is. But I know it predates Stonehenge by like 70,000 years or something insane like that. And I could be very, very wrong right now because I'm not looking at those particular notes. But they are. We don't actually know if they had gods. So there is no proof that they had gods because there is no text, but there is architecture, and the architecture itself is insane. And it literally, like, it just, when you see it, you're like, oh yeah, okay, so clearly they were worshiping something. They were coming together for something. This is it is the oldest, technically the oldest, like, I don't want to say proof because we don't really have proof. This is really tricky, right? Because there's really no facts in religion, but we have enough on Göbekli Tepe to say that it was a religion. And if you're interested in it, I highly suggest looking it up. It's spelled Göbekli. You should look it up. It's so fascinating. So then we have Proto-Hinduism, which is in the Indus Valley, or the Vedic religion. So the Rig Veda, Google says it's about 9 to 9.5K old. You'll see other things too that say it's like over 12,000 years old. So again, like we don't have too much on Göbekli Tepe. I just know that it predates Hinduism. So we're just going to talk a little bit about the order of things just to kind of give us some context about religion here. So it's 12,000 years old according to Google, and Stonehenge is 5,000. Yeah, okay. So it's fucking crazy. Like Stonehenge is younger than Göbekli Tepe. Göbekli Tepe. Again, I'm adding an additional L that's unnecessary, but you're welcome. It's just crazy to me, like bananas. Like pyramids didn't exist, and yet we have these stone structures in Turkey. It's just so cool. Anyway, so then we move on to Hinduism. Now let's just like kind of take a moment here, because we're very lucky to have this in Turkey to prove that humans were still involved with something outside of themselves at this time. But to believe that this was the only place in the world doing that Turkey, like present day Turkey, because it wasn't Turkey then, was the only place in the world having a spiritual experience, it's not true. Were they, I don't know, lifting stones that heavy? I don't know. I don't think so, because otherwise we would have some sort of like archaeological proof of this, but we don't. So I do believe that there are so many oral traditions that were thriving at that time, and we're so lucky to have some sort of proof of it, because in the world of religion we just don't have a lot of proof. We have science. Science is the only fact that we have. And so we can go off of that. A lot of, we'll go over that later. I was going to go over like the arguments of like a lot of people creationists will argue against science, and I can always give you tips and tricks on how to combat that, but that's for another conversation. So let's talk about the Rig Veda. Let's talk about the Vedic religion. Let's talk about Hinduism. Because literally, so you have Göbekli Tepe, and then fast forward to 7000 BCE. That's when we have Hinduism. It's insane. So Hinduism is our first written religion. How amazing. If you haven't taken the time to go through the Vedas, I highly suggest you do. And it's our first written religion. So you have the Indus Valley civilization. They were the first ones to have symbols of Shiva. And they had little ritual tanks, little like they kind of looks like you can Google them, but they're like little basin looking things. And they would have water in them, and then they would have little figurines. And these later, it's so first when you go to the Indus Valley civilization, again, we don't really have written text. It wasn't until later that the text became written, and it was the Vedic religion that actually led into modern day Hinduism. So they are kind of two different. The process was broken into two. It's not just one singular. It wasn't just like, cool, the Vedas were written and then we have Hinduism. Hinduism is kind of like the evolution of it. It is called and is the oldest organized religion still being practiced today in the world. And its sacred texts are called the Rig Veda, which were written in the 1500 BCE. So nerding out so hard right now. If you want academic journals, I'll pull them through the Patreon. Absolutely, of course. And yeah, so that's where we're gonna, I just want to, like, for context, I'm just trying to give you kind of a little bit of a breakdown, because I think it's important to know, because I'm going to bring Lucifer all the way back here. And so I just want to prepare you for that. So next we have Sumeria. So I'm sure a lot of you, if you work with the Goetia, you are somewhat familiar with Sumerian, Mesopotamian, or Babylonian text, or Zoroastrianism. But next up in line would be Sumeria. So Sumerian religion is roughly around 3500 BCE. We have the oldest documented religion here, but I'm gonna like just put a little X here, because that is so like amongst scholars, there's a lot of arguments on that. So I'll just leave it at that. But it is what it is. Again, like, we're going back to archaeology, so we're going back to what we have as fact, which is science. So it says what it is. It says what it says. You make your own decisions. Anyway, so there are gods that you're probably familiar with their names in this particular religion, and I'm gonna say them. They're Enki, Inanna, and Nell. So that may sound very familiar. And there's many other gods, but we're gonna start there. This is where we get like a lot of organization. This is where Christianity pulls a lot of their myths, their hymns, their priesthood or clergy, their covenants, their oaths, their temples, churches, places to go. This gave birth to Mesopotamian, Akkadian, Babylonian, and eventually Abrahamic cosmology. So we have technically Sumeria to thank for a lot of the ritual-based things that we do. It's not that those things were not done in Hinduism. They absolutely are. It's just the proximity to what was happening in Sumeria and what continued to happen in the Middle East. Once we kind of move into the Abrahamic cosmology, it's pretty clear where that comes from. My watch is yelling at me. My watch is telling me to do some yoga, and I agree, but we're busy right now, watch. It's not Monday or Wednesday. Stop. I know, don't talk about it. Okay. And then next, 3000 BCE, so like kind of right around the corner, we have Egypt. So literally Samaria was like busting out gods, and then Egypt was like, us too, hold on a minute, we're doing this as well, we have our own gods, back up. Thank you. I appreciate it. Like I said, my notes are not in order. I basically just like threw all my notes together and I was like, yeah, sure. Which I'm so sorry. I promise next time I'll be a little bit more organized, but you know. Anyway, so we're going to talk about Egypt for a minute. So we've got Egypt right around the corner. And again, this is a highly organized religion at this point, which Samaria, like, bravo, thank you so much for teaching us that. Which honestly, thank you so much to Hinduism for teaching us this. Like, what? At this point, like, look at us evolving as humans. Like, we are kind of taking animism and we're taking oral tradition and we're starting to like make this shit organized. Again, I'm going to remind you, whilst all this is happening, this is all that we have is documented text. So you really need to just, I'm going to keep shoving it into your head. You need to keep remembering that there is indigenous oral traditions still happening whilst all this is happening. So what I am offering you is text that we have. This is not including thousands of oral tradition, of religion and interactions with the divine throughout the entire world, all at the exact same time. Like, that should blow your mind a little bit. Like, we did not have access, okay? We had no internet, obviously. We had very little publication of anything. You wrote it on you carved it into something or wrote it into something and hoped that it lasted. Like, we had our voice. We had our voice, and our voice did wonders at this time. And it also blows my mind because like we were all receiving really similar things. We were all receiving really similar things. But what we had was no access. And so what we did was we built pantheons. We built pantheons because of how little access we had. We were living in our own little world. We were living in our own bubble with our own culture and family and friends and our own diviners and our own prophets, and they were receiving information. And so you see a thread, like you see the similarities between all of these entities. So let's go back to Egypt. We're at 3000 BCE right now, and we have the introduction of Ra, Isis, Osiris. Okay, and like we have the gods. We have our fucking Egyptian gods. Like, how amazing. We have emphasis on death and rebirth, yet again, very similar to Hinduism. We see these stories, they're all similar. They all kind of weave into one another. And we also have something we will get to later, which is cosmic order. And we really have Hinduism to thank for that. But we don't, like, again, we don't know what was before that or what oral traditions were spinning around at this time. And so we have one common thread through all of them, which is that the divine offers the world a form of cosmic order, which is so cool. Okay. So in Egypt at this time, we have structured rituals happening. We have rites of the dead. We have the Book of the Dead. We have magic happening. We have incredible and like profound funerals, okay, and like rituals. And what's really interesting is even though Göbekli Tepe is one of the most like mysterious and fucking important archaeological sites that we have and has ever been discovered, because and it's honestly still changing things, by the way. Like, archaeologists are still, it is like an honor for them to be there, and it is still continuously changing things in religion to date, and just like our relationship with like sacred beings, but like the truth is, oh, that my TikTok's frozen. Oh, we gotta wait a second.
Okay, you're good.
Okay. The truth is, the reason why that is important is because without that understanding, we don't see the thread that's woven between there and Egypt, there and Samaria, there and Mesopotamia, there in and Babylon, there and India. Like we need this. So okay, I don't want to go back into Göbekli Tepe. There's okay, so this is I wrote this out. But anyway, there's 20 massive stone circles. Okay, and there are many that are still they're buried in the ground, and I mean stones that are like you have to look it up because they are T-shaped. Okay, they are limestone pillars. Some of them are over 16 feet tall. They are weighing several tons. These pillars are covered with snakes, boars, foxes, vultures, and scorpions. There's like abstract symbols that like we don't know what they are. There's no evidence of buildings, of agriculture, of any sort of like habitation period at this site. Like humans came here for one reason and one reason only, and it was purely ceremonial. It was a religious space, and basically people like we don't know how this place was built. We don't know. It doesn't make any sense. No clue. So like honestly, like Göbekli Tepe is possibly like there are literally like you'll see some crazy shit about aliens helping them or the gods themselves helping them build this space, or that the gods were able to be here in gigantic form and help. I don't know. I mean, there's so many like fun, really fun I don't know, abstract woo-woo things to look at about how this happened, and theories. I think it's fun to look up, but you know, find your own and enjoy it anyway. But whatever was happening, like we have so much to thank to these OG religions, like so much. It is when we become aware of astrology because we have it written down. We became aware of shamanism or theories on the dead. The way in which we took animals in animism and used them as symbols for the physicalization or form of the divine. If you want to go into like esoteric perspectives that I have on this, is that that specifically animism and our like native religious origins and Göbekli Tepe, in my opinion, this is before gods took a physical form, and it is when that was beginning. This is, again, I'm gonna just when I specify that this is my UPG, I'll make sure to tell you, here we go with some UPG, but my UPG is that this is before they took a physical form of any sorts. And then we start to see physical forms come, specifically with the Vedas, then specifically with Hinduism. We see Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu. We see the physical form come. We see this cosmic order take heed to the divine's physical form. And it's really fucking cool. I mean, it's really cool. So when we have like the birth of deity forms, which is roughly 3000 BCE, I want to talk, being that we are here to talk about Lucifer, we are going to talk a little bit about Enki in Sumeria. Okay, so we're going to go, actually, how do I want to do this? Do I want to go back there? Or do I want to go forward and then back?
Is your phone charging?
My phone is not charging. Great catch. Hold on a second. Let's make sure my phone's charging. No? There we go. Okay. How's everyone doing? We're still good? We're still following along? Yeah? Great. So there's going to be a lot of similarities between Hinduism and Sumeria. Let me just be very clear about this. Nothing I'm saying here is to appropriate or insult any religion or any god. If you work with all of the gods that I'm going to name tonight, and you work with them individually, and me saying that they share some sort of evolution or stream of consciousness offends you, I'm so sorry. But also, you're here listening to me share my UPG and my experience. Take it or leave it, okay? So I want to talk a little bit about the similarities between the gods that were in Sumeria and the gods that are in the Hindu pantheon. We have water deities such as Enki and Absu. And then we have the cosmic waters of the Veda, which would have been I don't think that's right, actually. Well, yeah, I guess maybe it is right. Yeah, okay, maybe it is right. Okay, sorry. I'm reading my own notes and I'm like, I hope I'm right. And then we have, and I actually, one of my students is in, well, one of my clients is in here, and she's very, 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 she knows a lot about Hinduism. So if I'm wrong, please correct me, Pooja. Anyway, so then we have snakes. Okay, so we've got water deities, we've got snakes and fertility deities. We've got the Trinity of creation. That's really what's cool, and where they get really similar is we've got Enki and Enel, and then we've got Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. So really cool that we have this sort of trinity. A very interesting trinity. You know, just saying. We'll get to a different trinity later, but we have a trinity. And then we're gonna keep going. We've got divine bulls. Okay, so we've got some similarities there, which I think even Inanna's consort was a bull. And then you have Nandi, who is a bull. Then we have the divine decrees, which are in the Enuma Elish, which is a historical text in Sumeria. And then we have the Rata, I think I'm saying that right, the Rata, the cosmic order, which is in the Vedas. And then we have the flood myth. So Enki's warning, which is the flood myth. And then we also have the Manu saved by Vishnu. So again, do we have direct textual exchange? No, there's no evidence, okay? No evidence. Is there trade and cultural change and exchange that are very, very similar? Yes, and that is documented. We do have things that are documented that say, yes, there are trade and cultural contact. So there was contact between India and Sumeria at this time. So we cannot deny that there was a cause and effect because there was trade between these two lands. That is facts. Here we go, right? Then we have shared mythic structures. It is highly probable, which awesome. And then do we have like esoteric lineage? Because obviously we are here and we're all witches. So are you curious about that? Yes, there is shared archetypes without a doubt. So we do have some direct connection between these two religions, but again, we have no direct textual exchange, so we can't actually say that one stole from the other, right? So we need to remain respectful when we're talking about religions and we're talking about the birth of one, right? You don't want to just go around saying like this religion came out of this religion. Well, yes, we have proof that there was trade and cultural contact. Yes, okay, so Do things happen on those trade roads? Of course, of course. Do we share stories? Of course we do, because people were trying to stay alive on those trade roads. So they would pray to what? Their gods. And then they would share, because what do we do when you're highly connected to the divine? You share. And so we would share that information. Does that information get kind of twisted and or exchanged and or bleed into one another? Of course they do. So again, there is no proof that anything was borrowed from one another, but so many similarities. Oh, we also don't have proof of any sort of like linguistic parallels. I put that little note there just to be clear. That's really it. We have a lot of archetypes, a lot of like overarching architectural similarities. That's about it. Okay, so what I want to look at next, as if it's okay with you, I'd like to go a little bit deeper into Sumeria, and specifically Enki and Absu, if you're cool with that. Yeah, are we good with that?
So cool.
So cool with that. Great. Yay. My favorite. Okay. Whoa. That's Babylon. We're not going to talk about Babylon yet, because that comes later. That comes later. Oh dear. I went too far up. There we go. Oh wow. Bella, you're cute.
You are.
Thank you. All right. So, where the fuck are my notes on Sumeria? Bella.
Oh, they're at the top.
No, I've moved them like a dumb shit, and now I can't find them. Okay. God, I even put my parallels here in like the dumbest place. You guys, sometimes I do things and I just giggle at myself. I have this whole thing on like comparing these gods for you, and then I just like decided to not organize my notes, which go team. So anyway, I want to talk a little bit about Enki and Absu, and if I have to just wing it on this, I absolutely will. This is giving professor vibes. Thank you so much. That's my dream right now, like later dream, like old lady dream. Old lady dream is that Oxford does really, really well. This is my dream. Oxford does really, really well with their occult program that they're starting. My books do really, really well. I go back to school, I get my master's degree, and I become a professor of the occult at Oxford. And then I die in my bed at an old age. That's my goal, is to become like a little 5-foot white-haired witch working in Oxford. And I just roam the halls, and they're like, she works with the devil. And I'm like, yes, I do. So that's my goal. So that's my goal. Anyway, so let's go to Enki and Absu. So let me introduce them to you a little bit. So in Sumerian and Akkadian cosmology, Absu is the primordial deep. He is the fresh underground ocean, okay, beneath all of creation. He is the womb. He is formless potential and life. Okay. And then you have Enki, and he is the god of wisdom, magic, fresh water, creation. He's cunning. He is the mind. He is consciousness and its awareness. He is the voice, and he is the architect of civilization. And when you read the Enuma Elish, Absu is said to have killed Enki later on. And in Akkadian, Enki's name is A, so EA. But the story gets really weird, because Enki, he then builds a palace upon Absu's body, and he draws his power, his abilities, from the very waters that he conquered, that he is. So you have to ask yourself, if he killed Absu, then why does he remain so deeply a part of him? So the temple of Enki was literally called A or E Absu. That was a house. Okay, and it suggests something really important. We're gonna go into this, but it suggests that Enki and Absu were not necessarily enemies, that they were expressions of one another. That one was formless and the other was a conscious mind that rises from it. And this is really cool because this is my UPG. We're gonna UPG for a minute here. That the gods were formless and that at some point they became form through their own conscious mind, wanting and seeking to know itself. And we learned about this through the prophetic stories in the Enuma Elish, through Enki and Absu. In other words, one being, and this one being's journey of becoming form. And he did it through himself. So he ascended through himself. So very similar to how when you hear a lot of people talk about the Bible being metaphorical or allegorical, we're talking about a very similar thing. We have a religious text here. We have, as a medium myself, the amount of images and things that I see that are all metaphor, that are all abstract and have to be just like, wiggled through. This makes sense, because if you had someone, a seer or any sort of prophet, receiving messages, it makes sense that we would then take it literally, and we would be like, okay, well, they're two different gods, and he killed Absu, the end. But I really love this perspective. So we're going to go a little bit deeper. If killing Absu is not just a mythic battle, and it is an actual metaphor, okay, for the fragmentation or the evolution of consciousness of a divine being who splits himself, okay, to become knowable and useful to humanity, to himself. So he casts part of himself into the depths, okay? So Absu becomes the shadow or the hidden unconscious, and Enki becomes the face, the intellect. He becomes the God aspect, okay? So we have Absu, who is the deep psyche, and we have Enki, who is the ego that is aligned with divinity itself. So if you were to look at this theory here, you would basically have Enki becoming Lucifer, and then you would have Absu becoming Leviathan. And really, you kind of realize that the fall, or the concept of the fall, it is literally just the moment that the divine itself fractured. Itself fractured so that humans could name, could speak, could write, so we could do things, and we were not lost in the wholeness of just being conscious. So we were able to expand. So we're gonna keep going. Bear with me. So I want to talk about the parallels here real quickly between Enki, literally, so Lord of the Absu, so Enki, Lord of so much, right? And Vishnu. We have some similarities here. Again, there's no historical proof, but let's just put them together for funsies. So we have literally Enki, the freshwater in the abyss, and Vishnu sleeps upon the cosmic ocean. Okay, he sleeps on a serpent who represents eternal time. Then we have the creation. So Enki brings forth the divine decrees from the deep and orders creation. Vishnu, he navel births Brahma, the creator, during his sleep on the cosmic ocean. And then we have two flood myths. Okay, so we have Enki that warns of the flood, and then we have Vishnu, who becomes Matsya. I'm saying that wrong, which is a fish who warns Manu of the flood. So we have two very different cultures, one very, very similar story about a flood. So let's keep going, okay? We're gonna go back a little bit further. I want to talk about yeah. So in the Sumerian text that we have, that is the Enuma Elish, and we have other texts too that are surviving, but in these Akkadian Sumerian texts, Enki and Absu are not like they are not explicitly described as being the same being. I just want to be very clear about that my perspective on them being the same being, and this being sort of a cosmic awakening of the consciousness to physical form, like this is not something that is you're going to find in this book. I just want to be very clear about that. So that's, just my UPG and how I see this, because they are presented as being primordial beings that have dominion over particular areas such as freshwater and so on and so forth. So I just wanted to say that so nobody, gets mad at me later. You know what I'm saying? Okay, anyway. So in the Enuma Elish, we have Absu. He is a primordial force, not yet. He's not an individual yet. And then we have Enki, who kills Absu. He builds his palace on Absu's body. And his name becomes associated with the waters of wisdom. So this is the connection of the two. It's symbolic incorporation, just to be very clear. It is not a disconnect. They do not disconnect. This keeps going through not just Sumeria, but Mesopotamia. And Enki at this point in time then shifts to become the lord of the deep waters, or the king of Absu. And he decrees fates from the deep, in other words, the abyss. Enki then plays the role of creator, sustainer, and savior. And he uses nothing but the power of the waters and the wisdom of the abyss to do so. So in most texts, Absu is not just described as a place, but as a source. So the abyss is a fucking source of life. This is kind of huge, okay? Because I want to talk a little bit about the esoteric connections here, because we talk about this a lot, okay? And you probably didn't really realize where this was coming from. So this particular mystical tradition of like Sumerian esoteric mythology or cosmology later becomes Hermeticism. And this is where that Kabbalistic thought that gods seem this is kind of where all of that is birthed from, and how we even get to demons much later. So Lucifer and Leviathan at this point as a mirrored pair, or both the mind and sea coming in and out of the other, a creation or becoming individual of one another. This is deeply consistent in esoteric beliefs. Like, it's pretty fucking clear. And we have Enki and Absu to thank for the source of the abyss, the source of all things. So what's really interesting about Tiamat, I want to bring Tiamat up, who's the consort of Absu. Even though Absu at this point is not an individual. Joy to the world.
What in the world just happened?
My music box is playing Joy to the World.
Out of nowhere.
Joy to the world, the Lord has come.
I mean,
this is the most Lucifer moment ever. Yes, Lucifer, we know. And we love you for it.
Like, this is all about me.
It is. And you are very right. Can you be quiet?
No.
Anyway, he's like, bitch, it's about me. If I want to play Joy to the World for myself, I can. He's right.
You didn't let him.
I didn't let him. I love you. I'm sorry. Play it again if you want it.
You turned it off.
I did. You can end me later. It's fine. So he's creating his own theme song. So anyway, so Tiamat, I want to talk about Tiamat. So in Sumeria, Tiamat is the consort of Absu, but yet Absu is not a form, right? So how is she the consort of that? How is she his wife? Well, she was where the salt water and the fresh water met, and she was chaos. And the first demonization in this particular pantheon is Tiamat. She was demonized in the Enuma Elish as chaos. Yet she also gave birth to the gods. So I don't know. We all know how some of this text don't make no sense. So yeah, but Absu at that point, he may have been split to externalize the primal unknown. So leaving Enki as the acceptable face of the deep. So it's interesting though here, because we have religions trying to make we have people and religion, and we're trying to tame the divine so they become a bit more digestible and less monstrous. And so it's really easy to see something that they're doing and say like, okay, well, this is terrible. So then we have the demonization of such. And what's really cool is Tiamat, when she was demonized, you see her in dragon form. You see this giant dragon, this giant sea serpent. And she is a Leviathan. And so Tiamat is really the birth of Leviathan. She's the birth of the name. One of my favorite things I ever heard someone say, and I'm gonna be really honest, I don't remember who said it. It wasn't me, but I'll take all the credit. But they said that Leviathan gave her, it was really cute. They were like, I think Leviathan gave her his name so that way she could reign and wreak havoc, and the world would blame him and not her. And I just thought that was really lovely and cute. Anyway, take it or leave it. It makes me happy. That's cute. Anyway, so let's look at just like philosophically. Let's look at Absu and Enki here for just a minute, and I'm always going to come to you through the lens of like historical context, and then my UPG, and then I want to look at it just through the lens of philosophy for a minute. So Absu is the sacred. Okay, he is raw fucking material. Okay, he is the spiritual potential of the cosmos before form, before structure. He is the mystical and magical deep. He is vast and unknowable. He is literally the yin to the yang of the void. He is the Absu, the abyss, before form. Then you have Enki, who is the mind of divine order. He is the carpenter or craftsman who shapes raw potential into fucking life. He turns magic into cities, into people, into knowledge, into writing, into speaking, into voice. So he doesn't just dwell in the Absu or in the abyss. He masters it, he tames it, he channels it. And it is why in Mesopotamia, the temples were built over water sources. So symbolically placing the divine order over the chaotic water or waters meant that that is where you were pulling energy from. So in short, Absu is the ocean. He is formless potential, and Enki is the god who draws from that ocean, shaping it with wisdom, compassion, and creativity. And it's just, I think, really beautiful to see it that way philosophically, because you can't help but see Lucifer and Leviathan in that. And I know I'm not alone on that, because there's a big reason why you see their two sigils wrapped together. So, oh my gosh, if Lucifer is Enki, who was he before Enki? I mean, we have proof of religion before Sumeria. And I want to be clear, because you guys are probably curious to how Babylon got to be a thing. So we're going to talk about that next. But while I'm talking about Babylon, I want you to just think about the things that I just asked you about. Oh my goodness, who could he be before he was Enki? Let's go to Babylon. My goodness. Babylon. Where are you at, Boo? All right. So we're going to talk about Babylon for a minute. So we have Marduk. He's the chief god in Babylon. This came after the death of Absu. So Marduk is the son of Enki. And there's a few different stories. There's a story that Marduk convinced the seventh son of or the seven sons of Absu to kill him, and they succeeded. And that's why Tiamat lost her damn shit and went after everyone, because she was like, how dare you kill your father? My ear is ringing. And then there's the other story, which Enki was just like pissy and was like, no, Marduk, you need to go kill him, blah, blah, blah. The reality is this was a huge political shift for Babylon. This had nothing to do with what the gods did. This was the birth of politicizing religion. That keeps going for the rest of ever. It's still happening. I don't know if you know that, but it is. So politicizing religion started eons ago, and it started here with Marduk being the chief god of Babylon. Cool, huh? So in Babylon, we have the Enuma Elish still, which is the great Babylonian creation, the epic. Marduk defeats the chaos dragon Tiamat. He creates a world from her body, and he becomes king of the gods and organizes the cosmos. Sounds like a peach to me. And then you have Tiamat, who is the primordial goddess of saltwater ocean. She's the embodiment of chaos. She's a sea serpent and a dragon. And in the Enuma Elish, she rises in rage of her husband's death, Absu, because he's killed by younger gods. In some stories, it is his own sons or his own children. And she gives birth to monsters, or in other words, she gives birth to children of the abyss. And she wages fucking war against Marduk. And then eventually Marduk kills her and uses her body to form the heavens and earth. In other words, we cannot have so sorry. TikTok made me do that thing where it asks me if I can put a puzzle piece in a hole, and every single time I want to be like, no, sir, I can't. I don't know how to do that. You give me anxiety, but I do it anyway. So Absu, so Marduk slays her, uses her body to make heavens and earth because she's that much of a fucking boss. Oh my God. If you don't work with Tiamat or have not had the graces of meeting her, you should. Anyway, so then we have Absu, the primordial god of the freshwater, Tiamat's consort. In his mythos, within this particular evolved pantheon that has been politicized, he seeks to destroy all younger gods for being too noisy. Instead, his brother or himself, Enki, kills him. And then Enki, or A, is still here. He is still the god of water, wisdom, magic, crafts, creation. His symbols are goats, goat fish, flowing water, and a horned cap. Just gonna take a moment there. I don't know how to wink. I kind of do. I kind of look like an owl when I wink, but there you go. He is the creator and protector of all things, right? He defeats Absu and helps Marduk in the war against Tiamat because she's a boss. And he serves as a clever advisor. Then we have Enel. Does anyone know what El means? Amara Popsicles, you keep bringing up Vishnu. I tapped on Vishnu a little bit. I will tap on Vishnu again in a moment. Does anyone know what El means in Hebrew? We'll just put that question out there. Okay, so in El, he later diminishes in Babylon, but originally his role is the supreme sky daddy. I mean, God. Sorry. He's the god of wind and storm. He also has a horned cap, and he has a staff. He is central in Sumerian theology, which we know, and in Babylonian mythology, his role often eclipsed by Marduk. Then we have Inanna in Sumeria, or Ishtar. She is the goddess of love, war, sex, fertility, political power. You're going to notice a lot of that in Babylon. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of political power. Lots of political power. Again, I'm owling you. We're familiar with this, are we not, in Christianity? Come on. So this is kind of where all of that starts. God, I'm aging myself so much by like winking and doing things like that. So millennial. I'm gonna be perfect as a professor. Perfect. They're gonna love me.
Have to learn how to wink
I have to learn how to wink. She's known for her descent into the underworld. Inanna. I'm going to repeat this nice and slow. She is known for her descent into the underworld. She has many lovers, and her fierce and unpredictable power. She is a literal divine paradox of sensuality and violence. Inanna, Ishtar, okay? She has him upon him about her travel into the underworld. Every single day she goes into the underworld. Every single day. I don't want you to forget this. This is why I'm going very slow right here. I need you to hang on to this, because we're going to come back to this in Isaiah 14:12 when we finally get to Christianity. Okay? But I just want you to hang on to this, because Inanna and Ishtar has huge influence on the rest of everything. Okay? We have Nergal, who has another huge influence. He's the god of war, plague, and the underworld. His symbols are the lion and the mace. He marries Ereshkigal. She's the queen of the underworld, and she becomes a co-ruler, and she's associated with death and heat. Oh my gosh, we have the goddess of the underworld now. She's the sister of Ishtar. She rules the dead. Oh, do we see the archetypes building here? I just want to be clear of other gods. Do we see archetypes being built? Are my bad owl winks and slow speaking helping us see the architecture being built for us? Okay, good. Cool. We have Nabu. He's the son of wisdom, writing, and scribes. He's associated with Mercury. He's a son of Marduk. He becomes a major deity later in Babylon, and he's associated with priesthood. We have Shamash. Okay, this is one of my favorite gods. He's a sun god. He's a god of justice and truth and the solar disk and rays, and he is the bringer of justice, and he gets invoked for legal purposes. He sees all from the side, everything from the skies, and he sounds just so much like Abraxas. He sounds so much like Lucifer from Rome, or Apollo, or Apollon, or Abaddon. Just saying. Shamash. Also sounds like Lucifer. Also sounds like Enki. And anyway, so we have some others. I could keep going, but we don't need to go into all of the gods of Babylon. Anyway, so what I want to kind of put this in a nutshell is that Babylon was unique because it politicized theology. It gave gods say in politics. That's huge. It also gave gods their own politics. All of a sudden, gods had politics. All of a sudden, gods got mad at each other. And they did shit about it. There were wars in the universe. Hold on a minute. I'm going to say it again. There were wars in the universe. There was a universal war. That is going to change everything moving forward. Moving forward, every single apocryphal text you could ever think of in both Judaism, Christianity, you fucking name it, is affected by this moment. That's huge. Okay.